Jane Hill. I got Jane Hill on the call. I'm excited. She's actually the host because she wouldn't let me have the host. But we're not going to talk about that. It's
That's too
okay.
much power.
Too much power,
Too much
exactly. So
power.
I understand it. But so I'm really excited. We have revered guest Jane Hill. I picked that word because I liked it. It sounds like something I
Reverent.
would, huh?
It sounds reverent.
It sounds reverent. Yes, yes, reverent. I used cinnamons. You know, like if you Google stuff, it'll tell you other words for the same thing. Is that called a synonym?
Yes.
Anyway, I'm really excited about the call today, everybody that's listening. And one thing we're for sure gonna do is we're gonna have fun. Jane has taken some deep breaths because she's gonna have to deal with me asking questions and doing stuff like that. But I just kind of want to say a few things before we get started. And one of the things I want to say is that I would take notes. I would write this stuff down. I would write it down more than once. If you think you've heard it before, hear it again. Let it get into your subconscious mind because what I can tell you is the information that you're about to hear today from Jane, and I'm going to throw in a couple of things myself, but the stuff that you're going to hear has helped thousands and thousands of people make thousands and thousands of sales, right? And so forget the dollar amount, forget the value, the number of families that has been helped because of this information. And the good news is it's learned information, right? Like it wasn't like anybody was born with this stuff. Like it's just stuff you have to kind of get in your mind and get in your head. And but it's the principles of how we make sales in the home. And really just to kind of give you guys some background, if you've not heard from Jane before, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. She has personally sold over $1 million of annual premium of life insurance. I would probably put it up over the $2 to $3 million of just personal production sales. She's helped other people write tens of millions of dollars of insurance. Like it's a lot of premium that she's helped do. Like this isn't her first rodeo. I like that word too. But I'm just really excited, Jane, to hear from you and hear a little bit more about this why stuff and why it's important and why this and why that and all that rat-a-tat-tat. Um, Jane Hill, you're up. Go ahead, get them, Tiger.
You're not going to ask me a question. You just want me to talk.
Yeah, I want you to say something.
Okay. So no, I didn't write out this part.
I didn't prep you for this part. Really, I want to know. Let me ask you this. I do have questions for you. I have a whole list of questions written right here. It's a question
No,
list.
I'll go.
Huh?
You lost your chance.
All
All
right,
right.
throw them away. No more questions. But I do want to know what, because let's back up because I've heard stories that when you began your life in insurance that you weren't good, which I hardly believe. But is that true to start off? Like, were you not good at first, or were you great at first, or how did your journey begin in this industry?
Um, okay. I was horrible. James and I started the same day. We both enrolled in licensing. We both took our test and we both got our license the same day. And James does not remember being horrible. He remembers being great
That's
and
all I've ever heard.
making money. And I remember it being horrible. I remember no one picking up. I remember like no one picking up the phone. I remember them not being there when we got there. I remember writing my first policy, being told I did it wrong, like I calculated the premium wrong. And I went back and I told him it was wrong. And it went from 180 to 220 a month. And he was okay with it, Paul. Right.
Surprising,
So
right? You're
yeah,
like, oh my God.
yeah, I had him initial. I turned it in. I was like, oh, maybe this is gonna work. First sale, first of, and then it got declined. I was like, no, no, this is not gonna work at all. So I'm pretty sure I told James that we needed to leave insurance and quit every single day, sometimes multiple times a day for probably the first 3 years.
Wow. And
Yeah.
let me ask you this, because you say 3 years. Now, I want to think that you are making money, but maybe just not looking for the help that you needed.
We were making some money. It just wasn't like that much money. I felt like for the amount of time we were putting in, and we were investing in leads and yeah, I just did not feel like we were making that much money for how much time and effort was going into it. And yeah, there also wasn't like that much help and support. Like literally the people that hired us, when we called them to ask them a question, the first time we called them and they were like, why are you calling us? I was like, because you're supposed to help us. And they're like, no, you need to figure this out. And I was like, do you
Wow.
not understand that when we make money, you're gonna make money? Like that's how this works. And they're like, no, you need to figure it out. And they like hung up. So yeah, it took a while. Yeah, for it to
What
kind
a
of for it to pan out.
what a great intro. I've heard so many times. We just had a guy get started over here in Winchester, and he's like, "You guys are just available," and we're like, "Yeah, like that's kind of how I felt. Like I feel like we're supposed to help the people that we bring on, you know."
Right.
And
Yeah.
I've heard that time and time again that it's like, I was somewhere else and they just didn't answer the phone and didn't help me. And I'm like, well, how the heck are you supposed to learn? Like, I feel like you got to find somebody to help you
Right. Yeah.
or be really way better than me at studying. Like, you're a good studier. I feel like that's probably why you made it. So how did you, so let's talk more about the topic, which was building the why. And I do want to revert back to Jane. You say it was terrible. I'm pretty sure you guys were still making a six-figure income, but that was terrible to you because you were previously making a multiple six-figure income. Am I correct in saying that?
We previously were making multiple six figures. No, I'm pretty sure our first year part-time between me and James, we made like $35,000.
You're
Like
hilarious. Part-time, you made
yeah, no, I
35,000.
was so angry. I was like, what is this nonsense? Um, yeah, so and then I think the second year we did like 78,000, and then the third year is when we broke like 126. So it kind of progressed from there. But no, I was irate. I was frustrated and irate and not very pleasant to be around. So
Funny. I
I'm
feel
pretty
like
sure
my
yeah.
You pretty sure what? I
No,
don't
no,
want to
no.
cut that
Yeah.
off. No,
No, no,
there's
no,
something
no.
good coming there.
No,
Dang,
no,
that's
that's
terrible
it.
interviewing
That's
skills.
it. So
Um,
let's go back to the topic at hand.
all right, so the topic at hand today is building the why. Like, right,
Yes.
what are some things you were telling me some stuff earlier that you were thinking about and heard about, and what are some things that like, what does that even mean? What is like, I feel like we say building the why, like we know what it means, but like, what does that mean in the home with a client? What does that mean for you?
Right. So when we were first getting started, they said that how they taught us how to close in the home was to try to get our clients to tell each other that they love each other. So that's what I heard this, and I was like, you want me to get this stranger couple I've never met to say, can you look at your wife or look at your husband and say that you love them? And I was like, do you see this face? I'm Asian, right? Like, I don't think I have ever told my parents that I love them. And you want me to get strangers to say, can you turn around and look at each other and say you love each other, right? It was just the most awkward, uncomfortable, like weird thing ever to me. So I never did that. And then they also said, if you care enough about the people you're meeting with, you'll know what questions to ask them. And I thought, I am in my 20s. I have no idea what a funeral, like a burial, like the process, like mortgages, like all this stuff. Like, I have no idea. What do you mean if I care about them? The questions are going to come to me like freaking pixie dust or something. So obviously, I had a lot of anger issues, that
Sounds
I've
like
worked
it.
through. Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Um, but what they were trying to get at is if you can ask them questions in the home, then you're going to get the client to tell you why they want the insurance, right? And that's huge to me because insurance agents, like the bane of our existence is, I'm going to think about it, right? Isn't that the
Hate that.
worst? Like, I
Hate that.
really like you. I trust you. We're going to do something and we're definitely going to call you back, And I'm just like, okay, right? Give me your card. All right,
Oh my
And
God.
you know, and then you just walk out of that home and we've had new agents call us like they're gonna call me back. They said they really like me. And I'm like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work is because we we try to make it logical, because to me insurance is logical, right? Like you pay $100, $200, $500 a month, and your family's going to get 50,000, 200,000, $1 million, right? Like it makes sense,
Yeah.
right? The ROI on that, it just makes sense. But that's not how people buy insurance.
No.
Yeah, they buy it based on emotion. And so this thing I was listening to this morning, I was telling Paul, is I wrote it down. Reasons. They are the reasons why people do things. That's what I wrote down, which is, yeah, if you have somebody who smokes, or they have potential heart issues, like they don't change their life just because you show them pictures of black lungs, or you tell them like, your arteries are hardening, right? They don't change anything, right? But they change drastically their lives because the doctor or whoever gives them reasons to change. Like if you've got kids, then it's like, do you want to see your kids graduate from high school? Yes. Well, you need to change your eating habits. You need to change your smoking. Do you want to be the one to be able to walk your daughters down the aisle? Yes. Do you want to be able to like have grandkids? Do you want to and see them? Like, do you want to? And you give them reasons to change, right? And it's what we do in the home when we ask them questions. You're literally asking them questions, and the client is giving you the reason why they should have life insurance, not you. Like most agents, right? We know, like we just sell, we tell them, talk. I'm the best salesman ever. Like I can talk
silver tongue.
Yeah. No, that's like the worst ever. Yeah.
Jane, it seriously, it always has blown my mind that we can ask questions and they will tell us why they're gonna buy. Right. And then we just reinforce what they said. Like seriously, like I when I'm thinking about it, I go, dang, all we really do is call people in the home. Like we call people, we go to their house, we ask them questions, and then they tell us why they need the insurance. We're not trying to talk them into this or that or something or another. It's just it's kind of just figuring out why, like what's important to you, why is it important, how do we solve that problem that you have, right? It's so
and
wild.
It's making that problem like clearer, like crystal clear. Like I've had a handful of clients call me back over the years that say, oh, I quit smoking. I'm like, oh, yay, good job, right? Like I'm gonna come by and I'm gonna help you fill out the change of to get you a non-smoker rate. And I swear most of the handful that I've gone, and I'm sitting there, I'm talking to them, I'm like, so what made you quit smoking? I had a heart attack. Oh, well, because you can't change anything. Yeah, you're keeping what you have.
Don't miss a premium payment.
Yeah, we're gonna convert this is what we're gonna do. Yeah. But like they change, they quit because the doctor said you're gonna die if you have a second one. That was a big reason. And that's what we need to do, is give the clients clarity, because the more clear the reason is, the more clear the purpose is, that's what causes them to take action while you're sitting there, instead of them saying, I'm going to think about it and call you back. Like they have a crystal ball that they're not going to die, or they're not going to get sick, or not going to have a weird heart palpitation. Like they might not die, but they could have a weird heart palpitation. And that's it.
Happens all the time. I mean, it happens all the time. I think, I don't know what yours is, but my youngest death claim that I've had was a 24-year-old. I haven't had kids yet, but a 24-year-old cardiomyopathy. Her heart just stopped working. I met with her 6 months before and everything was fine. Everything was fine. And the great news is, Jane, we didn't do a medical exam, right? So like she got approved, and then like there was nothing in her records. It paid out $200,000 for the family. And I stopped counting a few years ago at 100 death claims. So it's like, I get death claims every single week. It blows my mind. I'm like, seriously, I think we had 3 last week, like 3 death claims in a week. And I just think like, if we didn't get good at asking questions and going out there and talking to these people and just getting in front of them and making them realize like, hey, like everyone knows they're going to die, but nobody thinks it's going to happen to them. And nobody thinks it's going to, not that they don't think it's going to happen to them anytime soon. They know it's going to happen, right? Like everyone knows they could have a heart attack or stroke, but it's not going to happen to me. Like I work out, I'm healthy. Why would that happen to me? Like, no, it still happens. It doesn't matter. Like
Right.
then you could say, well, why work out? Because you still feel better, okay?
Yeah.
Like you'll still statistically live longer.
Yeah.
But it's those little things. So what is that like when you're in a home? What are these questions that you're asking? What are the things that you're saying to bring that to light for people?
So we're gonna do final expense, yeah?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Final
Okay.
expense. I say the
Mhm.
majority of what everyone's helping people with is final expense, and
Right.
even if you're on another lead, they need final expense.
You do.
So
Yeah.
you know,
Like if I run through it, like the very first question I'm probably gonna ask is, do you know if you want to be cremated or buried?
okay,
And for the most part, they'll if they ever answer I don't know to anything, then my response is you cannot let them get away with that, right?
right.
Because of the fact that again, the clearer the reason, the clearer the purposes, the more likely they are to do something. Right. So you have a 56-year-old, a 72-year-old, and you ask them, do you plan on being cremated or buried? And they say, I don't know. Then
I
I just
haven't really thought about it yet.
right. And then I just
I'm like,
look
what are
at
you
them
talking?
like, so I'm gonna kind of make you pick.
Yeah.
And I say it just like that. Because if you died yesterday and you don't know what you want, can you imagine your children having to decide that for you?
Mhm.
And then there's death and emotions, right? Death, money, and emotions. And so then the kids are like, no, 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 dad would have wanted this. No, dad would have wanted that. I don't know what dad would have wanted, and then they feel guilty that they didn't know you better, right? Like, I mean, why would we put that on our children, right? That's horrible. I know what my parents would want, and it's extravagant. I'm just like, whatever you guys want.
They're
But
not getting that.
but that's the question. Like, do you want to be cremated or buried? I don't know. Is it okay if we kind of pick, one? Because yeah, that's not really fair to make your kids have to pick that after you die, is it? No. Like, so if you were leaning towards one, which one do you think it would be? I guess I'd be buried. I'm like, okay, there's a start, right? But you can't. I mean, right? Why are you
I
laughing?
love that. I love that. It's you're like, which way are you leaning? You do
Yeah, because I'm
wrongly
like
there.
leaning towards one or the other, right?
Yeah, it's like, are you strongly opposed to one or the other? Like,
Right.
is it and it's kind of like you're just clarifying which way are you leaning?
Yeah.
Are you? And then they'll say like, I don't really care, but I don't think I want to be buried. I'm like,
Yes.
okay, so
Yeah.
you're thinking cremation. Well, I don't know if I want to be burned either. Okay.
Yeah.
What about up in the air on one of those things? Like, like where you go in, oh, that sounds good. We're like, all right, well, that's what we can think about that then.
Right.
You're
But you're
just
just helping
walking
them.
them. Yeah, you're walking
Yeah.
them through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if
Um, yeah.
I think I heard one time if they knew the answers, you wouldn't be there, right? Like
Mhm.
they don't necessarily know, right? So we're trying
Right.
to help just bring it out and get them because they want something or else we wouldn't
Yes.
be there.
Right. Who is so bored that they're going to invite insurance agents over to their house at 8 in the morning or 8 o'clock at night, right? They'd rather watch Jeopardy,
Oh
or
yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, but that's my start. If they say they want to be cremated, I do actually, I say this, and you say whatever is real for you. But if they say they want to be cremated, I say me too, because I do.
Yeah.
And then I tell them, so I told my mom, and this is a true story, before we ever got into insurance, right? So I was in my early 20s, and I told my mom, I was like, so I think when I die, I want to donate my organs and be cremated. And my mom looked at me and she said, not if you die first. And I was like, oh. She's like, I'm not going to donate your organs and I'm not going to cremate you. And I was like, but that's what I want. She's like, I don't care. And so
Wow.
whenever so I tell the story, because this is a true story, and then I tell them, so if they want to be cremated, I say, do your kids know that that's what you want? And if they say no, I'm like, so that's a discussion you have to have with your kids because of the fact that um, the funeral is not for you, right? You're dead, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And whenever you have people who say, I don't care, they'll just throw me in the backyard, like, I don't care, and they just won't like let you move forward. And you're like, I know you don't care. right? Like you're dead. Why on earth would you care? But the funeral's not about you. Apparently your wedding's not about you and your funeral's not about you. I have learned this, right? And so the funeral's not about you. It's a chance for your kids to say goodbye to you. So what do your kids want to do for you?
Wow.
You know, and they're like, probably want to bury me. I'm like, yeah. So they probably want a service, right? They want to celebrate your life. Yeah, they probably do. You know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, because that's what they want. Funeral's not about you. I don't care what you want. You're dead, you know? But yeah, I tell them if they want to be cremated, I'm like, do your kids know? And if they say no, I'm like, you have to tell them. Because you could be an organ donor, but if your kids don't want you to be, then you can't donate your organs after you die. Because again, you're dead. You have no say in the matter, right? So like your kids have to know. And if you want to be cremated, but your kids want to bury you and you only have a cremation policy, guess what your kids are gonna do? They're going to go into debt or go into their savings to bury you. So what do your kids want to do? You know, and like you just gotta have that out. And if they want to be buried, like buried here, like is family over there, like where do you want to be buried? Because you know it costs so much money to transport bodies. You know,
Yeah, it is
yeah,
expensive.
it
You
is.
can't just put them in a car. They don't let you do that.
Can't you
I don't get
can't?
it.
Yeah. I remember James's grandfather died, and he before he died, his mom took care of him. So they moved him from Kentucky to Maryland, and she took care of him for like 3 or 4 years. They called us like 3 times to tell us he's gonna die. Come. And this man just kept living. Like the very next day, he was just walking up the street, flirting with the nurse, right? Like he just kept living. And whenever they would call to say he's gonna die, I'm like, he's not gonna die. Like, I mean, it took like years.
Wow.
But well, after he died, cutest little old man ever. His mom was like, I could have gotten him a first class ticket for both of us to fly his body back to Kentucky. You know, it just cost so much money. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
So,
cheap. Well, and it's not
mhm.
cheap. And I want to kind of go back to, I don't know about anybody else, but I felt weird asking these questions when I was new, right? I
Yeah.
felt weird asking about what's going to happen when you die. You might be comfortable with it, but I wasn't, right? Like, I don't know, like everybody's at different places. Like, I had good friends in high school, but their fathers had passed away. I didn't want to talk to them about it because it was uncomfortable for me. Like, I didn't want to ask them and make them feel bad. I didn't want to
Mhm.
make them feel bad, but really, it's like if we ask the tougher questions and we feel uncomfortable, then it's allowing them to figure it out, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it's almost like, because we can talk about dying and death and what's going to
Mhm.
happen when you die so fluidly and so like it
Right.
doesn't matter to talk about it. But honestly, like when you ask people about what happened, like when their dad passed away or what happened when their spouse passed away, like they actually like to talk about it. Like that is
Mhm.
like a grieving thing for them. Now, I'm not saying that you should talk about it all day, every day. That's weird. But I mean, to the same person, we do talk about it to other people. But I think that it's being open to asking those kind of weirder, not normal conversation questions because
Mhm.
people like Jane, we don't like me and you might sit and talk about like what's going to happen when we die, but normal people don't do that. Right? Like
Right.
normal people don't have a conversation. They may here and there, right?
Right.
Like and honestly, when I think about the people that have had those conversations, I think about older people. I think about financially savvy people have had those conversations where they're like, hey, when I die, here's kind of what I want to have happen. Like they're realistic about it. They're not mourning on it or thinking about it every day.
Mhm.
But it's up to us to ask, like it's not weird is what I really want to
Yes.
say to you guys. It's like
Yes.
it's not weird to ask those questions and get into that with them because that's why we're here. We're
Right.
here to be like, hey, so like when you die, were you thinking more cremation or a casket?
Mhm.
And then it's like I love and I was talking with someone the other day, Jane, and they were showing prices like, all right, cremations around like 3 to 5 grand. So they're showing 3,000, 5,000, 8,000. I always say like, yeah, cremations, three grand for a funeral or for a cremation, maybe 3 to 5, 5 to 7 for a viewing. And then, it's more than that if you want a casket. And all we really know is the cost is absolutely going to go up, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not going to be the same. And so that gives you the ability to show them more coverage than that because there's other bills besides that. It's not,
Right.
that's just like moving the body, right?
Right.
Or the oh, Jane, I had clients the other day. This lady, Amy, she had passed away. They got her cremated, and you're not supposed to do this, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. They drove down this road, the Blue Ridge Parkway, for hours until they found this perfect place to just, spread her out. I just thought that was, I thought it was cool. Like, but that took like a whole day plus some gas and some hotels and stuff. Like, all that stuff costs money. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
all I was getting at there. So where else do we go from here, Jay?
I want to touch on something that you said, which is, yeah, most people, they want to talk about, it's not weird for them, and it actually is cathartic, right? They feel like, it helps them to talk about it. Every once in a while, though, you will have somebody, like, I remember the most extreme case I had was this woman who was like, she started tearing up, and she was like, I can't think about it. I can't talk about it. Like, I just don't want to, and
Mhm.
she like started to tear up. And, I looked at her and I was like, this poor woman, but I can't, I can't let her emotions, right, stop that, because what on earth is this woman going to be like after her husband dies if she has no
Right.
plan in place, right? She'll be even worse. And so, I looked at her and I was like, I don't want to sound insensitive, but is it okay if we talk about it this one time? And you'll know that there's something in place. And because I know you've thought about it here and there over the years, is it okay if we talk about it this one time? And you'll never have to think about it again because you'll know it's done. And she was like, okay. And she thought something, right? But it made sense to her because she has thought about it over the years, like what she's gonna do if her husband dies, right? But she just brushes it aside because she doesn't want to think
Right.
about it. Yeah, but I mean, we can't let that happen, right? So yeah, cremation and then burial. And usually the very next question I'm gonna ask is, do you know how much what you want costs? Right? Do you know how much cremation costs? Do you know how much burial costs? And most, like I'm gonna say 99.9% of our people that we are sitting with, and we ask them that question, they're all gonna say yes, and they're gonna give you a number, right?
Weird random numbers too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But no
Oh,
matter what they say, no matter what they say, what I say is you're right. So if they say 8,000, 10,000, 19,000, like it doesn't matter. I say, yep, you're right. I think the only time I ever second guessed a woman, she was like in her 70s. And I was like, so do you, and her husband died. So I was like, so how much was it, for your husband? And she said it was $6,000. I was like, huh. And I'm just sitting there like, there's no way, right? That's not enough money. And so I was like, so I didn't tell her she was wrong because she buried her husband, right?
right.
So I was like, how long ago did your husband die? She said 1983. I was like, oh,
That makes
right.
sense.
That makes sense. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So that's right. Because he died in 1983, 6,000. And she's like, right, right. I was like, so it probably costs more now, right? She's like, oh, right, right. It's probably like double now. I was like, yes, yes, that's exactly it, right? Because
Yes. Yes, you're
yeah,
right.
because that is. And because if they give you a number and they say 8,500 or 9,000, and you say, well, it's really more like 10, or it's really more like this, like immediately afterwards, then now you're a salesperson,
Right. You're
right?
telling them they're wrong. You just be
Yes,
agreeable. Just be
right.
agreeable. Don't
Yeah.
argue with them. Agree with them,
Mhm.
and then add some more fluff. Like,
Yes.
and I say fluff like, yeah, and costs are always going up. That's like I
Mhm.
love saying that. Like it's always going to be more expensive because
Because it
that
is.
builds so much value above where you are.
Right, right.
You know.
But they know a number because, and you ask them, so do you mind if I ask you how you know that? Because we all know it because we do insurance, right? But the average person, why on earth would they know how much a funeral costs? Like if you ask me how much is a gallon of rocket fuel, I'd be like, I don't know. Do I look like Elon Musk to you, right? Like, why would I know this, And but if you ask them and they give you a number, then you ask, how do you know? Like, do you mind if I ask you? And they're all gonna say, because my mom died, my sister died, my husband died, my like the worst one to this day, like the worst one I had was this older gentleman who said my grandson died and they didn't have any insurance for him. My kids didn't have any insurance for him, so I had to pay for his funeral on my credit card. And every month I pay my credit card bill, I get reminded that my grandson has died. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you know But that's the only reason why a normal human being knows how much a funeral is, because they had to plan a funeral. So then you ask, like, did they have insurance? Did they not have insurance? Because if they didn't have insurance, I want to know how on earth this average family came up with $10,000, right? And if they had insurance, then it's like, oh, you guys are just the type of people who always have insurance. And they're like, yeah, mom always had it. Make sure we all had it. The insurance man came every single week and she gave her 50 cents for her policy and, whatever. Like that. And that's literally what they did back then, right? I can't imagine collecting 50 cents and $1.25 every week.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, but that's the line of questions that you have. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And yeah, and it's really just trying to figure out like why is it important to them, right? And I love asking people questions, Jane. I love asking, so like, hey, like if you were to die, like if you died tomorrow, like tomorrow you didn't come home, like who would it be that's in charge of your funeral?
Yep.
Like who would be the person that's going to pay that bill? Those are questions that are real. Like who's the person that would be in charge? Who would pay that bill? I'm figuring out who is important to them, who's going to take care of it. And then like, I love asking like, do they have a bunch of money laying around for something like that? And whether it's yes or no, it doesn't matter. My next question I love, Jane, is like, is that, I say I love it, but it's like, the question is like, is that really the kind of burden that you really want to leave on them? Which the answer is always going to be no. And that's why you're there. Right. And if they're selfish, I'll say like, is that really the last thing you want them to remember about you? Because who wants that to be the last thing? Like your last hurrah in the world is they remember paying for your funeral.
Right. Yeah.
That would suck.
Yeah.
That would just be terrible,
Right.
That's crazy. And by the way, gallon of rocket fuel is about $1.65.
Is that what? There's no way a gallon of rocket fuel is $1.65. That's cheaper than gas.
Google's always right. But it's a lot of gallons to get it into space. Okay.
That's
it costs
true.
over $1 million to get into
That's
space.
true.
That's also here right now. So what else? What other questions, Jane? I mean, do you feel like that's kind of like the extent of it to build the why? Is there more to it than that? Like, where do you go from there?
Like I want to, it kind of depends on the person, but if I can, I'll take it a couple of steps more, because I feel like you want to understand what's going to happen to this family, right? And I know I'm sure you've heard me say this, like, so Lifetime movies are just awfully depressing, right? People watch them to cry. I'm pretty sure that's why they watch them. Either the wife is killing the husband and trying to get away with it, or vice versa, or someone's dying, right? And I feel like when you're asking them all these questions, you're playing out their Lifetime movie, right? Like you're kind of playing out what happens each step of the way. Like if the kids live far away, if someone has to fly in, like when my grandma died, my whole family lives in Southern California, except for me and my uncle in Florida. And when my grandma died, my uncle came. So her son came to her funeral, but his wife and the kids did not. Right. And so as a grandparent, don't you want your grandkids to be there if you can, right? Yeah. And he did it. I mean, he had the money for it, but there was just a lot of stuff going on. But I know that there's a lot of families that they'll only send one person to the funeral, right? Like the kid, the child of the parent the child of the deceased goes. But like most of the time people don't bring everyone, because of the fact that you're talking about, for my uncle, that was 5 last minute round trip tickets from Florida to California. And back in the day, if you don't know this because you're so young, but back in the day, they used to, because last minute plane tickets cost more, if you showed them a death certificate, they would actually refund you and just have you pay the regular fare. And they don't do that anymore. I know, that's how I'm dating myself. All right. But they used to do that. They used to refund you if you showed a death certificate. And so that's 5 last minute plane tickets. It's a potential rental car. It's a potential hotel. It's time off of work for both spouses if everyone flies over, right? That's a lot that goes into it. And so like you're just trying to find out where the family lives, like what's gonna actually happen when this when this person dies. And if they still, like, you'll have some people that are just, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And they genuinely don't know. And you're trying to help them, but they don't know. And so an easier thing, instead of them trying to project the future, is to do the past, right? So I'll ask, what happened when your mom died? Like, how long did it take to move everything out of the house? Like, because you had to be in charge of all that, right? Like, down to, like, if I have to, I'll be like, who returned the Comcast cable box?
Wow.
Because there has to be, there's a prorated electric bill, there's prorated utility bills, there's prorated everything, right? And
Mhm.
$150 there, $75 here, $220 there, that adds up for people. And it's just stuff that you don't think about. $5 per death certificate, $25 for this, and blah, blah, blah. And you might think that's nothing, but that is something, right? That's money that could go to your grandchild's college. That's money that could go to your grandkid's wedding. That's money that could be for anything else, right? And so if you can't get them to project the future, then ask them about the past, because that is something that most people will have gone through or some version of, right? And sometimes they're like, oh, I didn't have to handle it. My sister handled all of that. And that's fine. But it's like, but do you know what they went through? How long did it take, like, to move everything out? And then it's like, because this is what your kids are probably going to have to go through too, right? So you're just trying to, so that way, like, you get the lifetime version out. So that way, when you're showing them the figures and you're re-explaining the problem back to them, you can make the Hallmark version, right? With the bird singing, because it's not terrible. It's not a horrible burden, because there's a plan, right? I like my TV channel analogy.
Yeah, and I think when you started talking about when they can't figure out their future, sometimes you got to go to the past and kind of think about it. I think about the Lion King, right?
I knew you were
And
going to say that.
I think about, he's trying to figure out what he's gonna do, and he can't. And Rafiki, the monkey, he tells him, you got to go into your past,
Mm-hmm.
and figure it out, right? And basically, you got to fix that, right? And so, like, it's the past can help you with the future, right? It's the
Yeah,
truth, right? You don't need to dwell in it, right? You don't need
right.
to stay there, but it's like what happened and what happened here and how does that relate over here, right? And it's
Mhm.
just trying to build connections. And I feel like, Jane, over time, you have developed a way to actually care about the family and actually try to think about, like, what is it going to be like for them, right? And however you put it, whether you say you care about the family or you're being logical or you're just working through a problem, it's like you're trying to figure out, you're asking them questions to figure out what it's going to be like when they pass away, what it's
Mhm.
going to be like when they die, and how we can make that easier on the family. And
Right.
that's really all it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
And so, Jane says it one way, I say it one way, you may say it another way, but I promise you this, copy somebody that's doing it, ask the same questions as them, and you'll get the same results, right? And then you figure out stories that you can tell other people's stories, like Jane's grandma. Was it your grandma that passed
Mhm.
away and your uncle? Yeah. And that's a story like, hey, I know someone who, when their grandma passed away, the uncle couldn't bring over the whole family because it didn't work out and it was expensive. And
Mhm.
like, so what's that going to be like for your family? So you tell the story as an example to bring it back to the question to get them thinking about their situation.
Right.
Um, Jane, I feel like you had something in there you wanted to say.
I was just gonna yeah, like, when you're asking the questions, you're identifying the problem. I've heard people say, like, you're killing them at the table, or and I'm like, no, that's not, like, it just sounds so weird, right, to me. No, you're identifying the problem is what you're doing, because you're not there to sell them something. And I genuinely believe that you're there to be a problem solver, right? They have a problem. That's why they filled out a form. That's why they invited a perfect stranger into their home, right? Whether they meant to be home when you showed up or not, right? But they know they have a problem, so you're identifying it. So you have to ask these questions, because that is identifying the problem. I think agents, and this is totally what I did, we're so quick to give them a quote, right? Obviously
Mhm.
they know they have a problem, right? So why else would I be here? So this is what it would be. But we're so quick to give them a quote before we understand their situation. And the way that we understand their situation is by them telling us, and then in them telling us their understanding their situation more, right? So I think it's not that, and this part, all these questions, that's the emotional part, right? So we always called it an emotion sandwich. Remember
Yes.
this? Forever
Yes.
ago, right? This is before Atkins. So it was emotion was the bread, right? And now we have low carb bread. I don't know, right? But emotion was the bread, and you had to ask all the questions to get the emotion to establish it, right? And then the logic was when you gave them the figures, and they picked the one that fit in their budget. That's the logic. And then you have to re-sandwich it because again, this is before Atkins, and you put the emotion back on top, right? And the follow-up question I always had after they picked an option was the beneficiaries, right? Because that's the emotion. That's why they're doing this. So it's
Right.
like, so if they're married, obviously it's going to be each other, but something happens to both of you. Like, is one of your kids going to be in charge? Is all three of your kids going to be in charge? Like, do you want to name one of them? And I make them pick if they're going to do all three or one, because now they're not thinking about the monthly payment that they already know is comfortable. They're going back to why they're doing this, you know?
Right.
And if they've got little kids, then I'm not going to let them name their kids. I'm just not. They're little. What is your 4-year-old, your 10-year-old gonna do? You know, I'm gonna make them pick the person who's gonna be in charge of them, right?
Right.
And they don't have to agree, but I like literally kind of don't let them pick my mom and her mom, because I'm like, are your kids gonna live in both houses? Can you pick one of them, please? You know, I'm like, you can change it, but can you pick one? You know, because these are real things, right? In the most unstable, horrible time in the kids' lives, for them to hear the parents, the people left arguing about, no, 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 like they wouldn't want me to do it, they wouldn't want me to do it, right? Like in the most unstable portion of their lives, to have some stability that you planned it out is a massive thing, you know. So yeah, it's an emotion sandwich, right? You have to have emotion and logic and more emotion, because if you have no emotion, they're just going to get a bunch of think about it. And if you
Right.
have no logic, then you're going to get cancellations because they can't afford the thing that you showed them, right?
Right.
You have to have both. Yeah.
You got to make it logical at the end of
Yeah.
the day. Like, you emotion them up and put that logic in there, because emotionally, I'll take the best for my family,
Right.
but logically, let me do what I can afford. And
Yeah.
so I think that's huge. I love bringing that back. I haven't heard that in a while. And Atkins diet, I haven't heard that one in a while. So that's good too.
Are you
So
calling my analogies dated?
Yes, yes, they are. But I'm really appreciate your time today, Jane. I think that there's a lot to be learned on this call. Is this everything that you need to know in the home? No, not at all. It's not even, not like, this is a piece of the puzzle, right? This is a piece of some stuff. I hope this gets you going. But honestly, what I would do if I was you, run a bunch of appointments, get out there, ask a lot of questions, say stuff, figure out what works and what doesn't. You're going to mess some of the questions up, right? If they don't work at first, try again. Try at a different angle. My mama always said, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. So record yourself, listen to it, and say, would I buy off of me? Because I've recorded myself and gone, that makes sense why they didn't buy. So a lot of times you can figure it out, but we're here to help. If I can help you at all, I'm more than happy to. Jane can help you at all. I'm sure she's more than happy to. But here's what I can tell you: somebody that's working, running appointments is easy to help, right? Easy to help a person that's out there making mistakes and making impacts and making success too, right? You're having success. Sometimes you might sell a few apps a week and it feels like you're failing all the time because you're not selling as much as you want to, but that's easy to help, right? Now we just got to strategize on how to get you just a little bit better, a percent better, just a little bit better every single week. And really, thank you again, Jane, for being on the call. Did you have any closing remarks for our viewers today?
I just have one thought,
All
which
right.
is going back to the reasons. Like, we are selling insurance, and also heard this morning, but you know what? We are changing the world too. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. Like Paul talked about all the death claims that he had, and I've had death claims. Like, if you've sold insurance, you have had death claims, and the ripple effect that that has on that family and
Mm,
everyone else around them, that they don't have to do a GoFundMe, that they don't have to be in that emotionally wrought place to know that their dad died and they can't bury them,
mm,
like that they don't have to have all that against their self-image because you went out and you helped somebody. that does have a ripple effect. Like you are making a change and an impact. So I hope that you guys will all take that as a reason, as having an impact about what you're doing. And because it is very ordinary and still like it's, to make phone calls and go see people and get no showed and get, cussed out and all that stuff, but it makes a difference. So
Yeah, that's
I
huge.
can add to your reasons and my
I
reasons.
love it. I
Yeah,
love it. I love it. It's a noble cause in my mind. I feel like we're
absolutely.
doing good. So alrighty then. Well, you guys have a good day. Jane, you're the host. So sign us on out. Everybody, take care. Ta ta. Bye bye now.
Bye.